Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Watson Michael from Ceylon Institute of English and Leadership. And once again, we've got Mr. Dean Wantenaar back with us. So, for those who don't know, Dean, he's the country manager for Believe Fitness in Indonesia, company that is based out of Malaysia. So, Dean, it's been a long time, my friend.
Yes,
Welcome. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be back with you, Watson. Always good to see you.
Absolutely. Great to have you back. So, these days, so many things are going on, right, with regard to transformation. So, what are your views on transformational leadership?
So, can you just repeat that?
Sure. So, what are your views on transformational leadership?
Yes, sorry. Okay. Yeah, transformational leadership, I think, Watson, because leadership's about inspiration.
Hmm.
Inspiration, in a sense, a good leader would always create a vision for his people. I think that transformational leadership for me means that it's a kind of leadership style that takes people on a journey where maybe
Yeah.
they can explore their own growth personally.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
so it has to kind of embody things like innovation, personal growth, obviously
Hmm.
good development from the individual, where maybe at the end of that journey with that particular leader, they feel as if they, in a sense, have transformed, got better, improved,
Yeah.
grown as an individual. Um, as opposed to a kind of a stifling type leadership, which is not transformational. Yeah, it's not inspiring. There's no vision,
Hmm.
um, and it's kind of very, how can I say it, maybe data numbers driven, where it doesn't inspire people and doesn't help them to grow and
Yeah.
develop within themselves. That's what I
Yeah.
think it says it's kind of self-explanatory, transformational. It has to be, but it obviously starts with good vision and, of course,
Correct.
inspiration from any leader.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now
yeah,
you have experience, right, across multiple continents and
yeah.
everything. So what are some effective ways to balance cultures within the workforce, which is something very important?
Yeah, well, I think, look, I mean, I think we as a let's say as a people, definitely since COVID,
Hmm.
putting work policies and work issues aside, I think generally speaking, you're starting to find a much more higher focus on diversity,
Hmm.
inclusion, and equity. That
Yeah.
I think it's not particular quotas in the DEI. It's also about actually being genuinely inclusive,
Yeah.
celebrating diverse backgrounds, finding effective
Hmm.
ways to include the cultures of different people. Because with remote work now, of course, it's a totally different world. It's totally global. You're not
Yeah.
Most of the time you're not working in an environment where it's only your nation or your nationality or your particular race. It's a global, truly global world now with remote work, hybrid work. So the issues around like communication, collaboration, etc., implementation of those policies and practices that include people, and provide like an equal opportunity for everybody is becoming more and more relevant and more important. And it's not just about reaching a particular quota. It's about handling this global workforce, and dealing with the fact that you have to understand other cultures, you have to include other cultures, you have to include other races. It's a given now. It's a given,
Hmm.
in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Very
got
true,
you got to
Dean.
balance all that. You got to balance all that.
Hmm. Balancing is something which is very important, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
you emphasized it very well. Okay. So based on this, what are your views on delivering change?
Okay, so yeah, I would say delivering change. I mean, as long as you've got it's important to have what the change goal is at the beginning. It's essential then, obviously, for the company or the organization to adapt that in terms of how they're going to implement it across the culture. So it requires, obviously, I would say, very good communication, especially with all the stakeholders, a very clear vision of the desired outcomes, as I said. And then you just have to approach that with a proper plan, a realistic plan, obviously considering all the potential challenges and the resistance areas that might come up for that. And then again, just maybe doing that in the environment of a very supportive structure, very patient, supportive structure, because it's not going to be about just one person delivering it. It would require everyone to pull their weight in terms of delivering that vision or that outcome. I think it's a little bit too much to just put it on one particular leader or person within the company. And I think that's what's happening too. Workforces are becoming a lot more collaborative. Let's say a lot more flat structured in the sense that hopefully, I think I might have referred this in another podcast, but in Stephen Covey's book, The Eighth Habit, he talks about finding your voice. And it's a great book. But yeah, I think people are being allowed to find their voice more. So the delivery is not just up to one person. It's up to all the voices in the team to deliver the change.
Yes. To teamwork, together.
Yeah.
Together, everyone achieve more, right? Spot on, Dean. Great.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So now this is one of my favorite things. Okay, comfort zones are going to destroy people, right? Comfort zones are going to destroy people. There was a time where I was also in a comfort zone, right? So for the short term, it's okay, but mid-term to long term, it's bad. Okay. So how important is it to move past our comfort zones?
Yeah, I must say this is a favorite one of mine, and I truly believe it. I don't like it when it happens to me, but there's a saying: your greatest growth lies at the edge of your comfort zone. That is absolutely 100% true for me anyway. I've managed a lot of people, and I think it's a good thing when a manager pushes someone out of their comfort zone. And I think if anyone's really true and honest about that question, when they look back on their career and notice the places where they've grown the most, it's probably been where they've been shoved into the zone out of that comfort zone, the unfamiliar territory. And it's absolutely, what I'd say to people is never ever be scared of that, because it might not happen a lot. It's like interviewing, you never like, we don't just interview every 5 minutes. So every interview you get, you have to take an opportunity as that is, you're getting better at the skill of interviewing. The same goes with your comfort zones. You need to really embrace them when you're outside of them, because you might not get like a lot of chances to grow. So embrace it. Every time it happens, embrace it, use it, and you become better at growing out of the comfort zone. That's all I can say. I think those are valuable experiences, and you're not going to always get a lot of them. And of course, there is a place where you want to kind of move to a comfortable place that like maybe then you'll get a bit bored, then you need to get out of the comfort zone and go to the next level. So it helps you move along levels of your growth. But again, just always embrace it. That's what I'd say to everyone. Embrace the edge of the comfort zone, because that's where you're going to grow. Simple as that. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, because some chances don't always come by, right? So if you need to grow, you need to move out of your comfort zone. Great. So now can you tell us an interesting story where you faced adversity?
Well, there's a lot of those.
Okay.
I suppose the one that always comes up for me was when I was territory head for Fitness First in Qatar, and there was a fire at one of the big malls there, major malls called the Villaggio, and unfortunately, I think 13 people lost their lives in that fire.
Okay.
And among them was a lot of children, and it really was. It was, you know, it was prior to Qatar hosting the World Cup event, and it became a kind of a real international focus, and especially for Qatar, because it was so crucially important to prove that they were capable and all that to run a World Cup. There was an extra heavy focus from the government, from the municipalities, the powers that be in terms of health and safety within every single mall, every single facility in Qatar. And they really clamped down. And in fact, ended up they closed our mall for nearly 6 months. So that there was just no business. There was no operation. So many businesses, not just my club, suffered. It got to a stage where my guys were sitting, I was making them come in every day. We'd have to try and keep them occupied, keep them focused. Of course, personal trainers weren't making money. Sales guys weren't making money. You know, these guys are commission driven, they're incentive driven. Eventually, I had to start transferring people to different regions, different countries, just because they really had to support their families back home. It took so long. The criteria from the government in terms of licenses and passing and jumping through the hoops to get your facilities and your, you know, the more it was a crazy time, and it took about a year. It was a very tough year. I would say that, and then what made it even worse was that we actually had a fire break out in the club. The sauna burnt. The sauna elements overheated and burnt. And luckily, thank God, one of the trainers was actually quite close when the fire broke out and managed to put out because it was an electrical fire. And of course, that just brought the authorities down even harder on my club. And we were just coming out of the whole mess, and it was really a crazy time, But yeah, I mean, it's funny when you're in it, you feel like it might never end. Like all adversity, when you're in the moment, sometimes it feels like it's going to end. But you have to have faith, you have to believe, and you have to stay positive as much as you can. You know, nothing is forever. The seasons are not the same forever. It's not winter forever. It's not summer forever. You will eventually move out of that season. That was a very tough season, but yeah, I learned a lot. Also was very grateful for a lot of people that were also going through the same thing, that were incredibly helpful. I couldn't even name all of them. But yeah, just the support during that time, the bringing the team together, there was some really beautiful things that came. Like all adversity, there's always some beauty that comes out of it, you know. And you can always find it if you look for it. There's always some beauty that'll come out of the adversity. And I mean, obviously, Qatar got through that. All the businesses, I think most of them survived. And look, they held a very successful World Cup and put that incident behind us. And don't forget the lives of the people that were lost and the children that were lost in that fire. I mean, people actually even went to jail over it, you know, it was crazy. But yeah, that was probably the one that sticks out for me the most, I think.
Wow, interesting. Right. Okay. So now, this is a bit of an interesting thing I would really like to know. What is the best advice you would give your younger self?
The best advice I'd give my younger self. I'd say maybe don't let your ambition change the person you should be, like a good person in that sense. So don't let your ambition to make your mark in the world change your values as an individual, or make you a worse off person, if that makes sense. Watson.
Mm-hmm.
The other one would be like you're gonna face failure, so don't
Yeah.
learn to embrace the failure, because just like the comfort zone thing we spoke about, failure is also a learning curve,
Yeah.
and you
True.
don't want to fail. You don't want to fail often or too much, but every failure is an opportunity to learn. So when you fail, don't. It's not the end. It's maybe in some cases it's actually just the beginning. So have that kind of outlook on it from a mental point of view. Uh, Take your failures, embrace them, learn from them, and move on. Don't look at it as the end of the world. And then, I mean, I would say, like I said, we spoke earlier before the podcast. There's a saying I
Yeah.
like. A couple of my friends use it. Two sayings I have: only death renders
Mm-hmm.
hope impossible. I can't remember. I think it might have been Winston Churchill. I might be mistaken, but yeah, as long as you're alive, there's always hope. So never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
And hope is a very important emotion. The other one is it's a good life if you don't weaken. So many times people lose hope, they weaken, and then things really can start going miserable for people when they kind of lose that hope and that
Mm-hmm.
positivity. They get into
Yeah.
a cycle of failure, and they think they lose
Correct.
hope. As long as you're alive, there's hope, and as long as you don't weaken, it will be a good life. And I really believe that. I really do believe that.
Fantastic. Wise
Yeah.
words, Steve. Wise words. And just before we wrap up, any final message from you to our viewers and listeners?
Um, yeah, I would say that's what I say to my kids. Um,
Mm.
I always say to them, try to be a can-do kid, not a I can't kid. So we have a saying in the house. My name is Espen, and I'm a can-do kid, or my name is Fair and I'm a can-do kid. Try and be a can-do person, not a can't-do person. And also remember that change is inevitable. It's going to happen.
Mm.
So there's three things that always change: people change,
Mm.
circumstances change, and environments change. So
Mm.
nothing's forever. Nothing's always set in stone. Those three things always change. So you have to be good at change. You have to embrace change. You have to be resilient to change. You have to keep moving, because that is going. What do they say? They say the only constant is change. I don't. There's
Mm.
someone said the only constant is change. So you have to be good
Yeah.
at it. You have to be good at change.
Yes.
And of course, you never stop learning. You until the day you breathe your last breath, you're always learning something, and you're never too big
Mm.
or too important to even learn from the lowliest kid or the lowliest child or the lowliest worker.
Mm.
Everybody has always got something to teach somebody. That's what I would say to my younger self, and just remember those things.
100%, Dean. 100%. I would agree with you, right? Because we don't know everything, right? We can learn something from someone else, right? I mean, they would have.
Always.
Yeah, yeah. They sometimes because we are still learning, right? We are not the smart people in this room or in this area, right? They're still learning. So I'm doing podcasts and I'm learning a lot, right? Even from you, Dean, right? So, so thank you. By the way, I forgot to
No,
say
well, I mean,
something.
likewise, I learn from you. And I mean, we have a saying in South Africa, my home country, we call it
Yeah,
Ubuntu. And Ubuntu basically
yeah,
means I am who I am because of you. I'm better because of you. Um,
yeah.
because no man is an island, and you can't do
Yes,
everything on your own. I mean, you can only be a lone wolf for so long. Lone wolves are not
yeah.
protected. And Nelson Mandela, our first black president to ever rule South Africa, a fantastic leader, great man. Um,
Mm.
that word, he truly tried to imbibe that word into the country, Ubuntu, and bring the people together, because you're only as good as your neighbor. You're only as good as the people around you. You know.
Very true. Yeah. And just before I forgot to say something, the last time we met, Dean said, asked me what. what's the usual time I exercise. So I said I'm a morning person. I usually exercise in the morning, but 1 month passed and things changed. Trust me, guys. Now for over a year, I'm exercising in the evenings. Okay, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just when it comes to training, I like to get it out the way because sometimes the day runs away from you, and it's
Mm,
really comforting. Like say 11 o'clock, you're stuck in meetings, and
yeah,
you just and then you're thinking, hey, I still got to do a workout tonight. For me, mentally, I don't like that. I love the feeling of like maybe I'm having a hectic day, and I can just
yeah,
say, I've got the training. At least I got the training out the way, and I got
yeah.
the training done. And I mean, look, it's
Mm,
always a good way to start your body in the morning. Get up and get the blood flowing. Get it
mm,
circulating. And I tend, unless you really have like a heavy workout, it
mm.
energizes you for the day.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah,
Great. So, Dean, thank you very much for taking time and doing this podcast
pleasure,
with us.
absolute pleasure. Anytime. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, Dean.
Take care.
Right.